Good day, gentlemen. I hope you are having a great day. This is my first ever review video, so please take it easy on me. Actually, no, go fucking hard on me, and call me a dickhead. But nonetheless, hello and welcome to the first ever review on a video game. For today's review, we're going to be talking about Payday 3. I know all of you are most likely going to assume that I'm going to shit on the game because of the server issues they have, but recently the game has been becoming more stable in my opinion. Well, for me especially, because majority of the time when I'm actually playing the game, the amount of time it takes for me to find a match, it takes like 1 minute. And because of the maintenance that they do, I feel like it generally improves the game a lot. But we're gonna talk about that in the next topic, to say the least. And so, today we're going to be talking about the game itself, the overall gameplay mechanics, and everything I'm going to talk about in this video. However, I am not going to talk about the server issues that the game is having. Sure, the server issues is something that makes the community go fucking batshit crazy, but it also baffles me the fact that there are so many people in the world that are like acting like that this game is like their life is fucking dependent on it. It's like, whenever the servers are like not working, and I'm like, okay, like for me especially, I'm like, okay, well that's nothing. I just like wait for like a couple hours or two. But there's some people that just like fucking batshit crazy. I've seen some degenerates out there that are like, oh, I hope you kill yourself, Payday dev. Like I've genuinely seen certain people in Twitter especially. Well, it's no shit, it's Twitter. Come on. I've genuinely seen people like threaten the developers themselves about like the game's not coming out perfectly. And they're like, brother, give it a break. They're human. They're doing their best. And even if people don't believe in it, just give it some time for fuck's sakes. Go outside. Go touch some grass for God's sake. Good grief. But I'm getting out of topic. Right now, I'm going to be talking about Payday 3 and my overall opinion, but I'm going to completely ignore the server issues behind. Now, Payday 3 is a great game, but not exactly perfect. Why am I saying this? Well, the game itself is great, however, there are slightly a few issues here and there that the game has it, but overall I would say, without those issues aside, it is probably one of the best FPS games I've ever played in so many years. It is one of those games that I've been wanting to play for so many years, and it's perfect for me. It's a huge improvement from the second game, and I feel like it really should deserve more love than it than getting all the hate it gets, because holy shit, the poor game itself is just getting shit on by every known man. And so, right now I'm going to be talking about the 5 main components, or like main chapters in the video, those being gameplay, mechanics, the overall feeling, the menu or slash the UI systems, and the enemies itself. But first, let's talk about the gameplay mechanics that overall comes with this game. Now, let's talk about the general gameplay of the game. The general gameplay overall in Payday 3 has drastically improved both in loud and in stealth, because in Payday 3, majority of the heists that has been released are can be completed with both loud and stealth. So let's talk about them one at a time. The first, I'm going to be talking about the loud aspect in the game. The loud part of the game is extremely satisfying, because once the alarm goes out, instead of the cops immediately rushing in, the cops will actually genuinely take their time and will try to negotiate with you. And so, unlike civilians in the second game where they're like completely fucking useless, I mean, on certain occasions, on Payday 3 they actually are an extremely valuable asset, because in Payday 3, civilians, you can use them as either a body shield, I will talk that in the mechanics section, either trading a civilian for delaying the assault timer, or you can trade them for resources, mainly first aid kits. And so, depending on how you approach the mission, if you do decide to immediately kill the cops that are like trying to negotiate with you, the cops will immediately start the assault and go in. And so you have to really think about it. Do you want to instantly start the assault, or do you want to delay it? Because as you're delaying it, you have more time to complete certain objectives, do this, do that, and do whatever. And so the enemies in the third game are actually genuinely more smart. Well, they actually think, for once. Because unlike in the second game where they like immediately rush it without any sort of second thought whatsoever, on the third game they actually approach and attack you more cautiously, because depending on the difficulty you play, on like the lower difficulty they'll like run around mindlessly, but on like the highest difficulty, that being overkill, they actually genuinely start to think more often and strategize against you. And every enemy always feels like a threat to you, because like unlike in the second game where it's just like a fucking object that's just standing in your way to be disposed, over here that's way different. The enemies are actually fucking tough, because there's no like specific skills on like on this specific weapon class or etc. Because you have to really think of how you approach a certain groups of enemies, or one enemy in particular, because they are actually deadly if you don't deal with them quick enough, because they are able to literally shred you to pieces if you don't fucking play more carefully, because the game requires you to take everything much more slowly, and requires you to genuinely think more often than to rush in like a fuckwit. Because if you run around mindlessly without having any sort of second thought, the enemies are going to be more open, like they're going to be spreading out much more often to literally corner you. And so if you start to take your time and actually think about your surroundings, then you will be able to push back the police officers without any sort of issues. But even if you do decide to play aggressively and you're like still are more aware of your surroundings, you're still able to do well if your aim is well. Unlike mine, where I miss like a fucking idiot and hit someone and miss someone completely when they're like standing still. But I'm getting out of topic. And so during an assault, there will be multiple enemy variants that will come in after you, because only on Payday 2 there were only the special enemies, but on Payday 3 there's something called the uncommon enemies, those being the sabotage squads and the hostage rescue teams. These sabotage squads will be wearing a more orange type of clothing, to say it least. Like they will have certain parts of their clothing that were like very easily noticeable because of their orange clothing. And what their main priority is that they will do their best to delay the objective as soon as possible, stopping the thermite on No Rest for the Wicked by like turning on the sprinklers, turning off the drill, and etc, etc. They're just there to like slow the game down a little bit. Hostage rescue teams are self-explanatory. They're just like mainly focusing on rescuing civilians and shit. And these guys are extremely important to take care of, because civilians, as I said earlier, are an extremely important asset. Because without civilians, you're just a sitting duck. And so, these uncommon enemies are actually very important to deal with, because they're not just like side enemies that are just like, oh, they're just there just to make it more interesting. They are an actual genuine threat that you have to think about as well. And of course, the special enemies that are like coming back are the most fucking outrageous enemies in the game. Not like bad type, they're fucking fun. Like every special enemy are just so interesting to fight, because they're a whole new fuckfest of enemies that is capable of shredding your ass with sandpaper and sending you to the Shadow Realm, especially dozers and cloakers, because once they get your hands on you, your ass is dead. Not even your team AI is there to fucking help you out. And another thing I should also mention is that the team AI are actually more valuable than those in Payday 2. Because on the third game, whenever you finish an assault, depending on like your current situation, they will actually drop you a equipment. If you're low on ammo, they'll drop you an ammo bag. If you're low on health, they'll drop you a medic bag. If you're low on armor, then they'll drop you armor bag, and etc, etc. So it kind of depends on your situation, and it's really nice for them to help you out. And there's also another mechanic called the FBI assault, which I will get into that in the mechanics section. But there's also an infinite assault wave that will eventually come out to you. So the infinite assault only occurs if a certain heist takes or goes on for too long. And so if say a heist has been going on for more than 20 minutes, and then Shade, this version of Bane, will begin to notify you that the cops will never back down, never give up.
You need to shut
Sorry.
the fuck
And so
up.
they will basically never back down, meaning that it's an endless assault that you have to deal with, because they're done playing nice and they try to negotiate with you, so they're like, fuck it, send it all in. And so you have to be very quick about it and finish the game as soon as possible, because they will send more dozers and more cloakers to you soon. And trust me, those special enemies are something you do not want to fucking ignore. And that's pretty much it about the loud section. It feels very satisfying to play because even the guns themselves just feel so satisfying. The reload, the sound, the impact, like it feels like actual guns. It's not like it doesn't sound like a fucking pea shooter. It sounds like they have power behind them. It's like every enemy reacts differently depending on what you're shooting them with. You shoot them with a pistol, they'll slightly stagger a bit, but they'll like ignore it. You hit them with a fucking 7.62 AK, and they'll literally like stumble on their fucking asses because of, well, it's an AK that shoots big ass rounds, and so on and so on. And every enemy will like behave differently depending on how you fight them, and I will get into that on the enemies chapter. But that's my overall opinion on the gameplay section, on the loud. It is very satisfying, and it is a huge improvement than in the second game. Let's talk about the stealthy part. A mechanic that I somewhat forgot to mention in the video is that eventually, whenever the heist has been continuing for a while, a FBI van will come around the corner and will make the assault be infinite. This is just basically the Captain Winter version of it. And so, in order to get rid of the FBI assault, you have to go outside and find the FBI van that has a large satellite onto it. And once you find it, you will be able to get rid of it entirely, just by shooting at it. This will cause the FBI assault to end eventually. It will not continue forever. However, the final assault thing that the cops will eventually do, it cannot be prevented. So once the police decides the final charge is gonna happen, they will completely go for you, even if you have killed like 90% of the New York's population. And that's pretty much it. The stealthy section of Payday 3 is an extremely fun and interesting topic. Usually myself, I don't really enjoy stealthing a lot because it's very boring, but in Payday 3 it's one of those mechanics where it feels oddly comforting and very satisfying to play, because if you play your cards right, you're literally able to complete 90% of the heist without even masking up. But before the heist begins, you will begin to notice that there will be a text on top of you that will say you are in a specific area. Those being public area, private area, or a secured area. And everyone in the map will actually behave differently depending on how depending on where you are. If you're in a public area, nobody gives a fuck about you. Literally, not even the guards and cameras. Like, even if you bump into them, they'll just like say, "Hey, watch it," and you just keep bumping into them and they'll not care whatsoever. However, if you try to lockpick or try to do something related to an objective in front of a guard or a camera, they will actually begin to be more suspicious. So be more cautious of what you're doing. If you're in a private area, that's where you have to be more cautious. The civilians won't care about your presence, but if you try to do some illegal activities, then that's where they'll actually be more suspicious and notify the guards about you. But if a guard does spot you in a private area and you're unmasked, then they will ask you to stop and will escort you out. And you will also notice that there will be keycards on their back that you can steal, or sometimes a phone that you can hack, depending on what mission you're playing. And so, if you play your cards right, you can even use yourself as a distraction for your other teammates. Like, you intentionally get caught by the guard, so while the guard is escorting you out, your teammate moves in. And so there are a lot of like team play elements to it, and etc. And it's the same thing on the loud aspect. Some person holds the staircase, some person deals with this enemy, but in the stealth, some person focuses on this, the other guy focuses on the guards, and etc. Everybody has their own little thing that they can do if they want, of course. And so, the stealth aspect, as I mentioned earlier, is extremely satisfying because it actually requires you to really plan like what your next move is, because you can't just simply fucking crouch run jump combo like in Payday 2. You have to actually like move from cover to cover to like not get spotted. But if you're in a secured area, that's where you have to be extremely cautious because anybody that spots you will try to detain you or put you in handcuffs. And if they do, they will begin a something called searching mode. I will briefly explain that in the mechanics section. And so, as I said earlier, you can actually genuinely complete 90% of the heist without even masking up because you're actually able to do multiple activities without even masking up. However, you still cannot jump for some fucking reason. Like, is it really that hard to just lift your legs? But oh well, I'm getting out of topic. And so, the stealth section is actually more fun for me because even if you do fuck it up somehow, you could just continue on without having any issues because in the second game, you needed to have a stealth build, like you needed to have all the skills to at least do something. But in the third game, you don't really need them because even if you do decide to fuck it up, you could just continue on. And so on. Body bags are no longer a thing, I forgot to mention, because thank fucking god, because you can actually carry bodies now. And just like toss them around. Well, not toss them, you just drop them on the fucking ground. And civilians actually act more disciplined to your orders, or like whatever you ask them to follow you, or you can just simply just grab them and just fucking push them whatever you want. But it is slow, but it's more practical. And that's really it about the stealth section. There's really not much else to really talk about it, other than the fact that it's a huge improvement, and I do genuinely want to congratulate the devs on that. It is one of those mechanics where, or one of those gameplay aspects where a lot of people, for some reason, don't like, which baffles me. But for me, especially for someone that doesn't really like sneaking around, it actually feels fun and rewarding. Well, for now anyway, so that's pretty much it about the stealthy section. Let's talk about the other mechanic that, or well, concept, or components I should really be saying, on Payday 3. That being the mechanics. Let's talk about the mechanics in Payday 3. There are so many mechanics that have been changed, removed, or added in the game. So if there are some that I have missed entirely, please add it into the comments and I will pin you down, most likely, if I don't forget. So if there's a mechanic that I forgot to mention, please notify me in the comments, and thank you very much, because there's so many mechanics that the game has that I feel like I should have probably mentioned. And so, let's talk about the mechanic that has been added, to say at least. Or somewhat changed. The first thing that you're going to be noticing, as I mentioned earlier, is that you will begin to notice that there are guards or civilians that will be carrying a keycard or a phone that you can hack on their back pocket, if you're sneaky enough. And so, the cameras have also been changed, finally, after so many years, that they're actually able to move around, instead of just fucking looking at one specific direction forever. Because you can literally be stuck in a corner and literally wait 20 minutes in Payday 2 and the camera will not fucking move. But in Payday 3, if you wait long enough, the camera is going to sometimes like move either left or to the right, depending on where it looks at first. And so there's also a thing where they completely changed the lockpicking mechanic, where instead of like holding a interaction button, there is like a little mini game that you have to complete. Basically, it's just like a spinning circle, and then you have to make sure the circle stops in a white line at the top to basically get it open. And so they also completely changed the armor system. Instead of charging all of the armor like in Payday 2, it acts more differently. Right now you will only have chunks. Depending on what type of armor you're wearing, you can have like 2 chunks, 1 chunks, or 4 chunks of armor. Basically, it's like a little health bar. It's like if you wear the lightest armor, you only have 1 health chunk. Basically like 1 bonus extra health. And if you're wearing the thickest armor, you will have 3 additional chunks, or like 3 additional health bars, as an example. And armor are an extremely important resource that you have to be very careful of in Payday 3, because they don't fully charge like in Payday 2. Instead, whenever you take damage, an example being 50 damage as a prime example, if you don't take a damage for like a few seconds, you will only recharge a portion of it. As I said earlier, if you take 50 damage, you will only regenerate like 25 armor. And the only way to fill it up entirely are with armor bags. Another thing I mainly forgot to mention in Payday 3 is that they have introduced a new mechanic, well, not technically a new mechanic, but more of a new equipment. These are little mini equipments that can help you eat both loud and on stealth. You have 4 equipments on your disposal: a mini camera, a mini EMP mine, a ECM jammer, and a motion sensor. The miniature camera, as the name implies, is just a simple little camera that you have that you can place it around. It helps you identify enemies that you normally wouldn't be able to see them around corners, or you can use them to like mark enemies during loud. The miniature EMP mine is probably one of the best equipment that you can have on loud, because it has the ability to stun any enemy except for bulldozers in a small range and for a short duration. And it is one of those tools where you're able to trap a couple of enemies in an area, and when you have the opportunity to jump on them, you just activate it and boom, it goes off, and then you just go in and get rid of them. The ECM jammer acts the same way as in Payday 2. However, instead of completely disabling cameras like in the second game, on Payday 3 on the other hand, it just makes the radios and the cameras less active, to say the least. Basically, it just makes them function much more slower, and it takes way longer time for them to detect you. So if you need to lockpick a door or perform a certain action that would take longer than usual, then you activate the ECM jammer, and then you just continue on with your work. The motion sensor is another useful item for both loud and stealth. It just basically acts like the little mines you can place in Payday 2. If an enemy goes through it, or a civilian, their outlines will be marked to you, and etc. It just basically notifies you that an enemy or more has been passed through your little motion sensor. And another thing that they also added is the overkill weapon. The overkill weapon are just basically your ultimate ability, but much more like it's very impactful, because if used incorrectly, it can fuck you over very hard. But if used correctly, you will be able to literally change the game entirely, from like a losing heist to like an instant winning heist, because there are only 2 weapons at the moment, that being the grenade launcher and the sniper rifle, and I'll talk about them right now. The grenade launcher is basically a 6-barreled grenade launcher that can shoot grenades at a very fast, at a rapid pace. And so it has an arming distance, meaning if it hits like a surface at close range, it will not explode. However, if it hits an enemy, then it will instantly detonate. But be aware that the explosion radius on the grenade launcher can be extremely large, and you can easily damage yourself if you're not careful enough. The sniper, on the other hand, is probably the better version of the grenade launcher. That could just be my opinion. It is an anti-material sniper rifle that has the capability of ignoring a bulldozer's armor and the shield, because since it's an anti-material rifle, it will go straight through. It has the capability of 2-shotting bulldozers and 1-shotting every enemy in the game. And it also has a thermal scope, so if an enemy grenadier throws a smoke grenade at you that you wouldn't normally be able to see through, you can use the sniper rifle to see through and hit enemies. There are certain objects that you can pierce through, but there's not really a definitive answer to what can pierce and what cannot pierce. You just have to take like a really big guessing game and hope to God that it can actually penetrate. And that's pretty much it about it. Right now, let's talk about the new ones that have been added or in the Payday 3. Whenever you see a guard that has not been spotted you or has been stunned by you, you're able to grab them like a body shield, and you can choke them to death. This is good for those that don't have a suppressor on their weapons, so if you want to continue the stealth but you don't want to like set off the shoot the gunshot and notify everyone, you can just go behind them and just choke them to death. which is really nice. And so another thing that they also added is the shields will now have a little visor, like a little window that you can shoot through. If you do enough damage, it will completely break, allowing you to either kill the shield or stagger them, exposing their whole entire body. However, as I mentioned earlier, you can take a civilian or a police officer as a body shield. The enemies in front of you will be more hesitant to shoot you, will try to shoot on areas where your body is somewhat exposed. However, if you hold the same person as a body shield for long enough, a cop will try to sneak behind you and hit you on the back of your head and stunning you for a short duration and forcing you to let the hostage go. And another thing that has been added is certain enemies are actually able to stun you. The cops are able to stun you if you have a hostage with you, if you're like holding them. Bulldozers are also able to stun you, and shields are also able to bash you with their shields if you get too close to them. They will like try to push you back, to say it least. And another thing that has been mentioned is like certain enemies will have a small little weak point that can be shot to provide a small little benefit to you. The tasers will have a small little trap that they have on their waist that they will either place it down or that can be shot by you. If you shoot at it, any enemy around the zapper, well actually it's called zappers, they're no longer called tasers, which is weird, but okay. The enemies around the zapper will actually be electrified for a short duration. And the new special enemy, the Grenadiers, will have a shitload of grenades in front of their body, like basically attached to their armor. And if you shoot at it, it will cause a huge flashbang to go off. And so certain enemies will just have little weak points that will benefit you. And let's look at, these are the ones that I remember in my head, but feel free to mention them in the comments, as I said earlier. Right now I'm going to talk about the mechanics that have been removed. Body bags are no longer a thing. Thank fucking God. Holy shit, you have no idea how many times I've hated that mechanic. It's like, there's been so many instances where I'm just like, carry the fucking body please, but no, the character's like, no. But anyway, body bags are no longer a thing, except you will be able to carry corpses. And so, whenever you're carrying a corpse, your movement speed is heavily reduced, but you're able to carry them wherever the fuck you want. You don't toss them, you just drop them on the fucking floor. And melee has been completely removed. Well, not removed, but they're more rehauled, to say the least. Melee weapons are no longer a thing, except you only have the butt of your weapon. If you hit an enemy with it, it only deals like 1 fucking damage, but like, you will stun them for a short duration. But it only works on like the smaller enemies, like light units. And medics are no longer a thing, and the perk system is no longer a thing in Payday 3, which is, to be honest, I actually don't mind with it. I'm somewhat happy that they got rid of it, because in Payday 2, when I host a lobby, everybody's just using the same fucking perk, Anarchist, Stoic, and that's pretty much it. Those are the 2 perks that I always see. I don't really see any other fucking perks being used. So I'm sort of happy that they kind of got rid of it, because sure, it's a fun little mechanic in Payday 2, but I don't really feel like it was interesting, for me at least. And that's pretty much it. I don't really remember any other mechanics in my head, and of course, feel free to mention them in the comments. But these mechanics that the devs added, changed, or removed, I feel like that has a pretty good positive effect on the game. I can't really think of a mechanic that I don't really like. Well, maybe for the stunning mechanic. The stunning mechanic can be a little bit annoying here and there, because I play very aggressively, and there are so many instances where a shield bashes me so often, and so it can kind of be annoying, but I'll get used to it eventually. And so, let's talk about the overall feeling of the game. It feels great. The animations, the sounds, everything about it is just mwah, perfecto. The characters, joy, has been improved dramatically. In Payday 2, she was literally the most annoying fucking character, and I despised her. I absolutely hated her. But in Payday 3, she is actually more mature, and I genuinely like her. The new character that they added, Pearl, is a nice addition to the game. Whoever voice acted her, I'm too lazy to check out who did it, she did a great fucking job of voice acting her. The accent, like everything about Pearl is just nice. I like her. She's a funny character. And of course, we can't talk about the OG4 characters: Dallas, Wolf, Chains, Hoxton, all of them coming back together. The 4 Chads just rolling into a bank. And Wolf has a new voice actor, which is nice, and he did also a great fucking job of doing so. But the overall feeling of the game is much more gritty. Unlike in Payday 2, which is just more fucking comedic because of, well, haha, funny spoon, haha, funny gun that can look like a fucking spoon. But in Payday 3, it's much more serious and a little bit more gritty, but it doesn't take itself too seriously. There are a few instances where it just feels sometimes goofy, sometimes funny, and it can be a little bit interesting. The characters and the voice lines itself are like very interesting. They all have their own little quirks here and there. And so, I really liked how they did with the characters. The overall feeling of the game is absolutely great, I love it. The menu is something that I'm not really a huge fan of, to say at least. The menu can be a little bit wonky, a little bit confusing to say at least, but I understand what they were trying to go with, but I'm not a huge fan of it. Well, I mean, I'm okay with it. I understand that they want to try something new, but I have my own feelings. The loadout section is interesting, because the skill system has been overhauled completely. They behave much more differently. So I will talk about it in the progression system. I know I said there will be 5 components, but shut up, this is my video. God fucking damn it. Anyway, the menu, or the UI, is okay. It's not bad, nor it's not good either. It's okay, to say at least. I would say it's a slight improvement, but that's just my opinion, but whatever. I don't really have much else to really talk about, other than it can be a little bit confusing, and at the same time, it is like very simplistic. Let's talk about the skills. The skills have been changed entirely in Payday 3. If I am not mistaken, you can get at least maximum of 21 points in the game. And so, the skills behave like this. The skills that have been locked are, you have to research them first. Basically, you just have to play the game in order to unlock them. And once you... Once you unlock the skills, you have, in order to unlock the other skills that this tree has, say the ammo skill tree, where if you want to get the one where you're able to get some portion of your armor back from picking up ammo, you will be able to... You only have to have one skill in that specific tree to unlock the rest of them. It's kind of complicated to really explain, but I'll do my best to do it. So basically, in short, you research a specific skill tree that you want to unlock by just playing the game. Once you unlock it, if you want to unlock the rest of the tree, you have to have at least one skill in that tree in order to unlock the rest of them. And that's it. And once you fully unlock it, the final skill on the specific tree, you don't need to have a skill in that said tree in order to unlock it. Say an example, in one of the skills where the final one, it grants you movement speed when you're masked, you don't need to have one skill at the beginning in order to unlock the final one. It's a bit complicated, but I will do my best in the editing process to explain it, so please bear with me. But the skill system in the game is actually great. I love it. There's so much ideas like going through my head. Like, when I... Hello, it's me, Random from the future. Again, I forgot to mention this mechanic, even though it's very fucking obvious. One thing I forgot to mention in the skills section is that there are 3 little perk or mini little bonuses that you can have by obtaining them via the skills. There's Grit, Edge, and Rush. Edge just practically allows you to deal more damage, approximately 10%. And then you have Grit that provides you a 10% damage resistance, and Rush that increases your movement speed, but there's no specific number the game gives, it just simply says it increases your movement speed. And how do you get these? Certain skills will give you a definitive explanation on how do you get it. Let's say you kill a specific enemy in an order to get Grit. If you run for like 3 seconds, you get Rush. If an armor completely breaks, you get Grit. And so like every perk tells you how you're gonna be able to get it, and there will be certain skills that will be refreshing the timer, because there's like a timer limit, and it's not on a cooldown, because there is no cooldown. You can get an infinite amount, but like there is like a timer before it completely goes away, and you have to regain it back. And that's it. See the skill tree in Payday 3? There's just so much ideas like going through my head. It's just like there's so many variety of other shit that you can do. And that's why I love it. Even if you don't really have that much skills, there's still a couple of things that you can mix and match with. And that's pretty much it. Let's talk about the big boys. Let's talk about the fucking star of the show, the special enemies. Oh boy, these fuckers are interesting. Let's start off with the shields. Shields are just simple enemies that may not seem that much deadly. However, if you act recklessly, you will see a huge fucking conga line of pricks hiding behind the shield waiting for your ass. And trust me, there has been so many instances where that happened to me. I rush a shield and try to kill them, only to find that there's like 3 fucking police officers standing behind them. And so, just because there is a shield alone doesn't mean it's just an easy target, because they will actually be very deadly. Unlike in Payday 2 where you can like break their ankles really easily, you have to be careful with your movement, because if you get too close to them, they will literally stun you and push you away. But if your weapon has high enough damage, you can break the little visor that they have on their shield. You can either kill them instantly, or you can stagger them. And the zappers, I was gonna call them tasers, but they behave the same thing like in Payday 2. They find you, they will zap your ass. But they will actually deal damage to your health instead of being on a timer, like in Payday 2. So if you lose your health, you will get downed, no matter how much armor you have. However, they will also place electrified traps on the ground that you can step on. If you step on it, you will be zapped for a few seconds, and every enemy in the goddamn game will focus on you, like you're a fucking Thanksgiving turkey. But you can shoot it off, of course. And as I said earlier in the mechanics section, they have their little traps on their waist that you can shoot. The new special enemy, the Grenadiers, are a fucking deadly pricks. They may not seem that threatening, but trust me, once they get their hands on you, your ass is gonna have to be fucking ready, because they can either throw flashbangs at you, or they throw toxic grenades. And if they do, and if it lands on you, you will be slowed down, you cannot sprint, and you will take health damage at a rapid pace. So this fucker literally says, oh, what's that? You got a good cover you can just chill in? Oh, fuck you, now get out of there. They're a very deadly enemy if they're not dealt with correctly. And so you should always be careful around your surroundings and don't camp around too much on a specific area. And let's talk about the main villain, the Cloaky Boys. Holy mother of God, I did not know Payday 3 is a goddamn horror game, because these motherfuckers are something else. These guys are something else. They will use grappling hooks to jump around buildings. They will jump off walls, slide under cars, and who knows what else. They will beat your ass. Their kicks are personal. They will, like, instead of them having line of sight of you, if they're literally, like, within 5 meters of you, even if you're behind a wall, they will start rushing at your ass. And good lord, they are terrifying, because, dude, there's been so many instances where they actually genuinely scared the fuck out of me. But their main purpose is not just to, like, knock you over. They actually have another small little feature. But what happens if you get hit by them? Like you got kicked by them? Unlike in Payday 2 where you're just like instantly knocked on the ground, instead you'll be more in like a incapacitated state. Think of Left 4 Dead 2 Hunter, like an example, where you get pounced by them. You need a teammate to come and save you. And if you don't, you get downed and you get cuffed, and there's like 10 seconds out before you get into custody, to say at least. But there is a feature that where they will also like destroy your equipment. An example, if you deploy a medic bag somewhere in a hallway, and if a cloaker notices it, they will literally go over it and pour some acid to get rid of it completely. And if you don't take care of them quick enough, that equipment you placed on the ground that you wanted to use earlier is gone and lost forever. So yeah, cloakers are also an extremely deadly enemy that are actually sneaky and will try to be more stealthy. But let's talk about the big boy, the bulldozer. Good lord, these fuckers are horrifying. These guys are a whole new threat. These guys are actual pain trains because they have their auto shotties, sure, and they have their faceplates, but they charge like a fucking bull. If you see them in the distance and they see you, they will start to charge towards you like a fucking bull. And if you don't dodge it and they hit you, you will be stunned and they will gun your ass down like it's fucking nothing. So always be aware. And trust me, they do a lot of damage even in the lower difficulties. So do not fucking underestimate them. And that's all I can say about the special enemies. All of them are great. Another thing I forgot to mention is that if you kill a bulldozer, they will drop like small little health packs on the ground that you can use for later on, which is pretty niche. And that's pretty much it about the special enemies. Let's talk about the progression. As I said earlier, for the skills, you only have 21 skills. When do you get these skills? It's randomized. Well, not randomized, but it's in like a specific order, and I don't know the order. You could literally level up 5 times and not get a single skill point. And you might be thinking, well, how am I going to level up? Simple. Completing challenges. For now, there is no XP that the game gives you whenever you complete a heist. You will only get XP from completing missions. And there are like 3 categories, if I'm not mistaken. Campaign, career, and weapons or combat. So depending on what you do, the progress bar will fill up depending on what type of challenge you do. Say you do this, like kill this enemy with this specific order, and it will give you an experience. And so you have to, this mechanic is a little bit of I cannot speak. This mechanic is a little bit weird and so off. Like, it just feels clunky because there's no like small little HUD that shows you the progression. You have to literally take a guess and hope to God that you actually finished it or made some progress to it. You have to actually take a guess about it. And the weapon itself have a leveling system. You just simply level them up by getting kills and just using them overall. With each level comes new attachments. And the attachments are very interesting. They change your weapon in a different way. You want your weapon to be effective on hip firing, or do you want your weapon to be effective at long range, etc., etc. Just basically multiple variable shit that you can make. And the maximum amount of level you can get with your guns are either 15 or 13. I don't quite remember precisely, but that's where it is. And there's also a new currency that has been added to the games called C-Stacks. There's like premium currency that you can get either by completing challenges or you pay them with money. You can only spend them on like clothing or on like specific attachments that certain weapons have that require C-Stacks. These are continental coins from Payday 2 basically, but different. And that's pretty much it. And that's pretty much it about Payday 3. Is the game good? Yes, Payday 3 is a good game, but there really isn't much else going on after you complete all the missions. Of course, obviously, well, because the game is like just came out like about a week ago or less, but apart from the server issues, which I'm not going to talk about, I'm just going to ignore it completely, the game itself is pretty good, and it's probably one of the best FPS games I've played in a while. It may seem like giving too much praise of it, but trust me when I say this that the game itself is pretty good. The performance can be a little bit fucky, like a bit wonky, because like even at the lowest settings, the FPS drops sometimes, but not on all the time. There will only be like barely any instances where it can sometimes lag. And I didn't really encounter that many bugs, only like very minor and small bugs that made me giggle. And that's pretty much it. I can't really think of anything else I forgot, but I might have forgotten something. But either way, this is my thought of Payday 3. Is the game good? Yes. Should you buy it? it's hard to say because despite the game being great, I don't think it's worth $40. But if you want my opinion, wait for a discount and then get the game. That's where I would highly recommend it. The game is fun, the game is interesting, the game is entertaining. Don't get me wrong, there are a lot of replayability, but I would highly suggest waiting for a discount before you get it, because right now, because of the server issues that the game is having, well, not right now, but like that it had previously, I would highly suggest wait for a discount to happen and then get the game itself. Because it's kind of hard to explain why, but like there's really not much else to do after you complete everything. But I do love replayability, and I love the game dearly with my heart. I love it more than Payday 2. But trust me when I say this, there really isn't much else to do after you complete the game. And that's pretty much it. I hope you enjoyed the video. My next review is probably going to be on Dying Light 2 or Dead by Daylight, so stay tuned. And my god, has this video been going on for long enough, so I do sincerely apologize. But without further ado, I wish you the best, and goodbye. Subscribe, and I'll see you the next time. Adifucking-os.